When Shinta and I were preparing to compile and write our Thrive book, we were diving deeper into non-mainstream heterodox economic thinkers and paradigms. And when we were doing this, we met a lot of people in the Netherlands said, do you know Christian Felber? Do you know Christian Felber? And I didn't at first. So sorry, Christian. So I needed a little help, especially from my friends at the University of Humanistics, as you know. And this was in 2017, and this is the Dutch version of Christian's book, De Gemeinwohlökonomie, or Economy for Common Good. And I can vividly remember when I first read it, because it inspired me a lot. But what I really like, and I know we're going into that today as well, was the clarity and the detailedness of how Christian created examples of how this economy for common good could be installed, from central banks to entrepreneurs to consumers, and all the roles in economics. And since then, I've been a very loyal follower and fan of Christian. So I'm really delighted, Christian, that you are our first guest. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kees. And thanks again to the whole team for inviting me and for starting this series on future fit, heterodox, new sustainable economic models. And instead of jumping right into the model, I would like to start with a very simple question that I like to give to non-economists, as myself am one. And the question is, according to your personal experience, which are the qualities, let's say the values, the relational values that allow human relationships to flourish? And people probably will not use the chat now. That's why I start sharing my slides with the answer that I usually get. And the answer that I usually get on that question is more or less this one. And no matter where I ask this question. So this is, let's say, a common experience of humans, which qualities, which values allow their relationships to flourish, allow communities to thrive, and provide and assure a good life for everybody. And then my second question is, why then do economists, or at least orthodox and mainstream or new classical economists, design humans differently like this? Why do they do this? Because we know that human nature is not like this. Human nature just allows us to be like this, but human nature also allows us to be like that. So why do we do that? And then the answer that remains is usually because we have to assume something. If we don't assume something, we can't calculate our models. And then my question back is, well, if it's just about assumptions, why don't you assume this? And this question remains unanswered. But my conclusion is that if we think about humans like that, from super rational to greedy and insatiable, well, then the result is the polycrisis and that we're in. There's a very clear and strong relationship. And the climate crisis and the ecological crisis, they are just one aspect of the total crisis. And that's why, in our view, it's high time to base these new economic models, these sustainable and more solidary and more just and more participatory and more democratic economic models on different values. And the first and quickest definition of the common good is that it is ecological sustainability plus humanity plus solidarity plus social justice plus cooperation, and all fundamental values that allow life to thrive instead of creating these crises. And as already said, there are several proposals on the table, and ours is a holistic one. And what does holistic mean? Holistic means that we have created a theory of change, which is a theoretical model of how we could see the economy differently than mainstream economists do today. At the same time, we are a participatory movement with 5,000 activists in currently 40 countries all over the planet. And last but not least, you already mentioned it, we also have a vision on a deeper, stronger, more direct and participatory democracy that we call sovereign democracy. Interestingly, that was the first line of your democracy definition, Antoinette, and we call it directly a sovereign democracy. Why? I will explain at the end of my presentation when we come to this third dimension. But I'd like to start with the model, which again tries to be a holistic vision on the economy. We don't jump into models. We don't use mathematics first and foremost. We ask fundamental questions first and foremost, like these. What's actually the definition of the economy? And what should be the goals of the economy? And how do we then measure success in the economy on all levels, from the national economy to a simple investment? And who should define these goals and these fundamental elements of the economy? Are these natural laws that we can only discover in our sophisticated studies, or should these be democratic decisions by the people? And of course, we support the latter. And the result of this holistic vision on the economy is not an end in and of itself. It's at the service. It's a tool at the service of a thriving society. It should respect the democratic rules that are made and not the other way around. There are no market laws. There are just political laws that design markets. But there are natural laws, which are the ecological limits of the planet. And they should not only be respected by economists, they should be the fundament of economic theory, as it is the case in ecological economics, which is one of the many heterodox economic theory schools. And as a result of all these broader questions, which are the contexts of economics actually, our conclusion is that the overarching goal of economic activities should be the common good. Of course, the democratically defined common good, not the common good that is dictated by God or by a queen or by a wise single person. No, that is defined by the people. And this is, of course, quite different from today's mainstream view on the economy, where it's all about making money or profit or return on investment. And this is just a different view on the economy, a different understanding of how we could consider the economy. But actually, it's just one possible view. And actually, it's a very one-sided view. And this is our criticism of economics textbooks. They only tell us this alternative, but not about the other alternatives today. Whereas 2,300 years ago, Aristotle already informed us about at least these two alternatives, which gives us a bigger freedom of choice and gives us more alternatives. And concretely, Aristotle defined the oikonomia, which is the original term of economy, management of the household, as an arrangement where activities had for the well-being of all household members. So the well-being of all household members was the goal. Let's call it the common good. Whereas money, capital, and any material good was just the means. And if this relationship between end and means flipped around, was perverted in Aristotle's view, if we strove for money and for capital first and foremost, then this wouldn't be an oikonomia at all. It would turn the oikonomia on its head and pervert it into a chrematistike. And he even had a different term for that. Today, we don't have chrematistike. which is the art of making money and to enrich oneself. Today we have the word capitalism, and it's already mind-blowing to acknowledge capitalism and economy as opposites, as opposite terms, because today we are just equalizing economy with capitalism, and that's obscurating, because they are, at least in the definition and worldview of Aristotle, the opposite. And the oikonomia, that's the main point actually. An oikonomia is an oikonomia for the common good by definition. And this should at least be part of the textbooks as well. It's not part of the text of most textbooks today, but it is part of our democratic constitutions. And this was really a very surprising insight, even for myself, when I found that in democratic constitutions, the overarching goal for economic activities should be the common good. They don't say that the economy is about accumulating capital or making profit or money. No single constitution says that. All the constitutions that tell us something that inform us in a certain way about the overarching objective of the economy say that it should be the well-being of all, the general welfare, or the common good. And now, is this just about linguistics? Is this just being sophisticated? No, now comes the point. Only if we are clear about the goal and the relationship to the means, then we know how we can measure success in the economy correctly. How do I mean that? According to everything I have learned in management theories, in strategy, in entrepreneurship, or in project management, I learned that success is measured in relation to the goals, first and foremost. To which degree we achieve our goals, this is the meaning of success, not how many means we have at our disposal. This is also absolutely relevant and maybe even essential, but success is measured according to the achievement of the goal. So if we are trying to measure economic success today with GDP or financial profit or the return on investment, I'm sorry to say that this is a failure of method, because we're not measuring the achievement of the goal, because the goal is the common good, but we are measuring the accumulation of the means. And this is methodologically flawed. Actually, it's a failure of success measurement, at least in the economy. It's right in capitalism, because in capitalism, or Rhématistique, it is about making money or accumulating capital. And that's why GDP is an appropriate and an accurate success measurement in capitalism, but not in economy. And constitutions tell us that we should practice an economy and we should not practice capitalism. That's the whole point. And now comes the famous question, who defines the common good? If we want to know to which degree we achieve the common good and who contributes to the common good and how, then we have to define it. And our suggestion is that this could be a basic political exercise with the citizens in a citizens' assembly or a citizens' council. And if we do this and ask the people, if you could decide which are the ingredients of the common good product, which is the North Star of a nation, then this is the usual answer of the people. Maybe not in exactly this way, but more or less in this way. And once again, same as with the first question, no matter where you ask the people, no matter in which culture you ask these questions, the answers are maybe not the very same, but very similar. And this is our proposal. We first ask the people which should be the sub-goals of the common good product. And then we ask scientists how we could operationalize these goals. Let's say we want to include health. This is a goal, but we cannot measure health. What we can measure is an indicator, and the indicator for health could be life expectancy. It's one option, or even more up to date is healthy years of life. And this is an indicator thanks to which we could measure the achievement of the sub-goal health. And the same we could do with all other sub-goals. And then we could even aggregate the result, and we would have at the end one number in a percentage, like an index. And this index, one number index, could replace GDP at the macro level of the national economy. And once we have done this exercise, we could actually derive the success measurement tool on the meso level for companies from these 10 to 15 or maybe 20 sub-goals of the common good product. But this is for the future, because we haven't had such a process in any country so far. That's why we made the common good balance sheet for companies, our, let's call it, sustainability reporting tool, in a little bit a different way. If you look at the green line, you see again fundamental values. And these fundamental values are not our private favorite ethical values. No, these values are the most frequent constitutional values in democracies. So our method was looking up what is already anchored and enshrined in constitutions and take them as the North Star also for companies. And the common good matrix and balance sheet asks organizations of all type, doesn't have to be companies only necessarily, to which degree, how authentically and how consequently do you live these values according to all your stakeholders, from the beginning of the supply chain to the seventh generation in the future. And actually, it's just answering these kind of fundamental questions. But now, very importantly, different from other sustainability reporting schemes that only provide information, disclosure of information and transparency, we propose that these sustainability reports, or actually these ethical reports, should be evaluated externally and get a score of a maximum of 1,000 points. And even there could be a negative result of, in our case, up or down to minus 3,600 points. If a weapon producer also discriminates against women, corrupts democracy, and so on and so forth, and shifts all the profit into a tax haven, well, then the result of the common good balance sheet, sorry to say, but could be minus 2,500 points. And now comes the most important design element, because there are no market laws that are natural. That would be a natural science, but economics is a social science, and everything in the economy is designed by humans and ideally decided in democratic processes. So it's up to us how we design markets, and this is our proposal to design markets better than we have done it up to date. Today, those companies that do more for the common good, that pay higher wages and apply higher ecological standards, they have higher costs and higher market prices, and as a consequence, a competitive disadvantage for doing good. That's nonsensical. And those companies that don't care about the common good, they minimize costs and externalize costs. They have lower costs and lower market prices and a competitive advantage. And that is equally nonsensical, and it should be the other way around. Actually, we propose to put the economy from its head on its feet, in order to have the most sustainable and responsible and ethical products and services more easily available. We could call it cheaper than those less doing good products and services. And we could do this linking to the result of the common good balance sheet, these positive and negative incentives, which start with public procurement measures and economic promotion measures, go via taxes, different tax rates, or loan conditions, finance conditions, until market access. Why not letting those companies trade most freely that contribute the most to the common good, and let's trade less freely unfairer companies, or let not trade them at all, not give them a loan at all. That would be the extreme case. Don't worry, it would still be a market economy if you love markets. I don't. I'm quite agnostic about markets, but today it's a fact that markets are the biggest stage of the economy, next to other stages of the economy like households or commons or public goods. So one of our moves is to shift the attention to all stages of the economy, because basic human needs are met on all these stages, in households, with public services and goods, in commons, and with markets. And our second message is, but if we keep markets, then we would like to transform them from capitalistic markets, which are characterized by profit seeking or even profit maximizing and counterpetition, to ethical markets, which are characterized by contributing to the common good, cooperating, and smaller companies. That would be the systemic change in the market economy. We have also operationalized the idea to shift from systemic counterpetition. Actually, it's not competition, it's counterpetition, to a systemic cooperation, and put into this picture, it is an alternative to capitalism, which has equally less to do with socialism. It's something that goes beyond, although some of those orthodox economists tried to tell us that if you are against capitalism, you're automatically a socialist. No, sorry, that's a false dichotomy. This is only giving us two choices, black and white, but there are many alternatives in between. And the economy for the common good is just one of them. Okay, just teasing all these elements that are described more in detail, not now, but we are describing an alternative on property. We are building on the donut, which is building itself on the planetary boundaries. The concrete idea is limited individual ecological consumption budgets. It's kind of ecological equality, now very up to date with the ruling of the European Court of Human Rights, that we have a right to a stable climate. And in line with this brand new ruling, we would propose that every human has the same right to enjoy the fruits of the planet. And as for trade, this would be also a class on itself. We propose an alternative to both extremes, free trade and protectionism, although free trade sounds so nicely and protectionism is almost breaking my tongue. Both are extremes, because free trade means opening up borders no matter what, and protectionism actually means literally closing borders no matter what. And both is nonsensical, because trade is neither a bad thing nor an end in and of itself. Trade is a means at the service of the same goods and goals that we have already discussed, from human rights to climate stability. And as a consequence, the proposed trade order would be an ethical world trade order. Just having mentioned that you know, if you want to dig deeper, there is a lot of stuff still to be discovered. Now I come to the second last part of my presentation, which is much shorter, and then the final point, which is the shortest. The second last part is taking a look on the movement that grew over the past 14 years. We started in 2010 from Austria, south of Germany, north of Italy, today in some 40 countries. And although some only see that companies are doing this common goal balance sheet, I tried to explain that the model is a macro model and it's holistic, although not all its elements are equally known. But the companies are our front runners, that's true. And more than 1,000 have done a common goal balance sheet from all branches, of course, starting with organic agriculture and all branches of manufacturing. And I chose this bakery because they falsified the market law of supply and demand. How did they do? Well, inviting the whole value chain, not only supply, the whole value chain around a round table with corn farmers and habitual clients and the employees and those who give the money and the company founders. And at this yearly round table, the baker asks the farmers, which is the price you need this year for having a good life? And then comes the answer after a break and a brief comes the answer. And for the last 25 years, this price, more or less, without a lot of negotiation, has been paid. And it works. And there are more examples, and they are not acting according to the assumed law of supply and demand. They are acting according to humanity and dignity. This is another one in the manufacturing industry for outdoor stuff. And Antje von Dewitz from VD is also an ambassador of our movement up to the United Nations. This is one of the 8 banks that have done a common good balance sheet so far. It's the biggest one. It has less than 1,000 employees. We used to start with the smallest companies of each branch, but the biggest ones have several thousand employees. They were awarded sustainability prizes, same as this public health insurer. They received a prize at the COP24 in Poland because they convinced their clients to consume less meat without incentives and without enforcing it, but with a great success. And that's why they received that COP prize lately. And this is our first audited company in South America, just to show you, give you a taste of the extension of the movement. Next to the common good balance sheet, we have almost a dozen of real-life prototypes, which are applied either by companies or by cities or by universities. And I just highlight very few of them, not all of them. This is a first common good current account in Austria. This is only a regional innovation in the banking sector, and it has been issued by the Cooperative for the Common Good, which is based in Vienna with 4,000 cooperatives. That is the little twin sister of Economy for the Common Good. This is one of our first common good municipalities, which are also doing the balance sheet for the city. This city managed to bring back young people from the big cities in Spain to the countryside because a common good municipality is quite attractive in life quality. And this is the first public university in Germany with a common good balance sheet, the Technical University of Nuremberg. And on that note, I already mentioned that there will be our 3rd scientific conference on future fit economic models in June in the Netherlands. And now I want to come to the last part. I think I have 3 more minutes. And first mentioning that we are like growing from the local and regional level very slowly towards the national level. We are not first talking to governments. We are first talking to small actors in diverse regions, but we are supported by an opinion of the European Economic and Social Committee. It was voted in the plenary, and it got a support of 86% of its members, and they voted in favor of including the model into the European Union's legal framework. So now the last point, and I have to do it in 2 minutes. And we already mentioned that we also have a vision on a deeper, stronger, and more participatory democracy. You've heard about citizen councils. You've heard about the most democratic country, Norway. You've heard about Switzerland. Maybe some of you are in Switzerland, but we are going even further. I'm very jealous of the Swiss level of democracy, but my thoughts go even further. And I can even explain it with the example that I brought. The idea is to implement sovereign rights, which is not only the right to initiate a referendum, that's just one of many potential sovereign rights. To initiate a citizen council would be a second one. And the concrete example is one that happened in Switzerland, because in Switzerland there was a referendum on limiting income inequality. And the proposal was that the highest income should be limited with 12 times the minimum wage. And the problem was that although a huge majority of the citizens in virtually every country supports the lowering the degree of inequality, the proposal in Switzerland was rejected. But why was it rejected? It was rejected for diverse reasons. Some rejected factor 12 because it was too low. They were in favor of limiting inequality, but not with factor 12. Maybe factor 20 or 50 or 100, but not factor 12. And others said, well, of course we have to limit inequality, but not with factor 12. Let's limit it with factor 3 or 5 or 7. And they were against too. And I even met people who said, well, actually, factor 12 is a reasonable idea, but it comes from the young socialists. I'm not a socialist, so I voted against. So there were very diverse reasons why people voted against. And our proposal is to use an innovative method of decision-making, which allows several proposals. So if one proposal crosses the threshold, like proposal 12 times, then let's allow more proposals, both lower proposals like 7 or 10, but also higher proposals like 20, 50, 100. And then we could measure resistance against all proposals on an equal footing. And the winning proposal would be that one that generates the lowest degree of resistance. And this is what I have done over the past 10 years in 25 countries. And the winner is most usually factor 10, sometimes 12 or 15 or 20, or sometimes even 7 or 5, but most frequently factor 10. And now comes resistance against lower proposals is extremely high. We could call it socialism. And also equally resistance against very high proposals is equally extreme. We could call it capitalism. So if you give people more choices than just one, the result will surprise us and maybe allow a lower degree of inequality. This is already my last slide, just to show you where we are. And I could explain later on why it's factor 900 in Switzerland and why it's factor 350,000, factor 360,000 in the United States. But this is the state of the art. And of course, most of the people desire a lower degree of inequality, and sovereign democracy would allow us to make a difference. That's it, with the warm invitation to not only ask questions, but join the movement. I end my presentation and thank you a lot for your interest.
Thank you, Chris. I'm applauding. And I know that, and I hope a lot of people will do the same from their computer. But you know, I can make myself visible. So.